Great to have you on the podcast, Alex. And so if we kick off with GHK-Cu, and I was thinking, because a lot of people talk about doing creams and things like that for your skin, but then not much is talked about with the injections and the kind of the pros and cons. I mean, I understand for injections, what I'm curious about is how systemically does it build up compared to doing it on your skin or on your hair or something like that? I mean, do you have much knowledge on that?
A lot, yeah. So GHK-Cu, first of all, glycol L-histoyl lysine, right? Complex with copper, right? So look at the name. It kind of tells you a lot about what it has the potential to do. It's so cool because, like you said, that lower Dalton weight, it's like, what, 300? You got to be, what, below 5 or something like that to absorb through the skin. You can apply it locally to do multiple things. Everyone talks about, again, the skin, right? The hair-based changes, which is awesome. So it'll drive vascular endothelial growth factor and transforming growth factor, elastin. It'll actually modulate some hair-based genes to, it doesn't actually upregulate hair-based hypertrophy through the genetic coding. It actually downregulates hair loss. And then it also drives follicular hair protein synthesis. So it does all the cool things with that, right? Locally applied, systemically applied, and we go into the injectable preparation, right? So now we have, okay, there's a localized effect to a lot of these. I don't even want to call them somatrophic-based compounds, but I kind of like to classify GHK-Cu with that in that same kind of conversation because of the repair-based genes. So you're looking at like 50+ repair-based genes. So if we have someone who, let's say, tears a bicep, easy example, right? One of the first things you have to do in that environment is assess it from a neonatal gene aspect or a paragenetic-based aspect, actin sequestering, and then get blood into that area, right? So what does that sound like? TB500, GHK-Cu, and BPC157. And then you have some occlusion work, maybe some red light therapy, things like that. But if we start going down that route, that thought process, GHK-Cu has that localized injection application route and also the systemic route where you could just go sub-Q into your belly fat or whatever kind of fat literally doesn't, could be anywhere. It could be your adductors, neck, doesn't matter. All it's getting into circulation. You can start making some long-term genetic changes, but also have spillover into the skin-based side of things, the hair-based side of things, the antibacterial side of things. So actually E. coli and things like that, I use GHK-Cu to cure a lot of different bacterial-based issues. If we look at the overall, and this one, this is why I relate it kind of to the growth hormone family, even though it's not at all. It's because what it does with decorin. So myostatin up, decorin down. Decorin up, myostatin down. Myostatin's not the thing that people really have to worry about with building muscle tissue, but it's still part of the conversation, right? It's part of the whole anabolic conversation. So what this does really cool is decorin takes it up, pulls myostatin down. So now all of a sudden, as an overall recovery aid, as a muscle building agent, as a recover from injury agent, you start to see, oh, this has even more application. So we have the locally applied to the area that's injured if you inject it. So intra-articularly as well, if you have like the elbow pains and things like that. Same with TB500 and BPC157, but those are more localized receptor-mediated clearance.
That's what I was wondering, yeah, if it's more localized for that, yeah, okay.
Exactly, yeah. So we have the localized receptor-mediated clearance on the healing peptides, those two, but then GHK-Cu is more so on the stem cell satellite cell conversation. So you're doing the localized effects via two different routes depending on the product. And then GHK-Cu, like we said, if you want kind of the global benefits, you can inject it. If you have some people that have like the wounds that won't heal, they'll have a cut on their arm, things like that. You can also literally get it into a vial, just prepare it, reconstitute it, and drip it onto the area like you would with a BPC157. You see healing locally applied there as well. So you maybe don't have to go the cream route, which they're awesome, but they can get pretty expensive and sometimes they can be harder to find.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been wondering, I was just going to say, so what about for prevention of injury? Say, I mean, I did a recent cycle of TB500 and BPC, and then I'm gone from that and then doing doing a GHK as a kind of prevention just to maintain so I don't get injured again. Wondering what you think of that.
Prophylactically, they're so awesome. Like you can only make the argument that, okay, maybe the copper toxicity side of things, but you go down that thought process and you think, copper toxicity. Not only that, but copper deficiency it's turning into one of the more common deficiencies in our society today. That's global, not just over here in the States because you're over in the UK, pretty much everywhere. So a lot of the issues with myocardial infarctions, a lot of the cardiac hypertrophies I'm seeing is partially due to downregulated or modulated and modified iron levels and downregulated copper levels, because you have that same kind of inverse relationship with
same with
copper,
zinc.
right?
Zinc as well. If you over supplement zinc, you can become deficient too, can't you, in copper?
Exactly. So you're trying to balance this out in a society that most people aren't even taking a simple multivitamin or 1 milligram tablet of copper. So usually the whole copper toxicity problem is not an issue. And if we look at like how to apply this, because it kind of gets back to your question as well, the higher the dose, the shorter the duration. So if you're doing something like the background prophylactic dose where it's maybe months on end, 100 micrograms daily sub-Q into your stomach fat, good to go. You can do that for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever, depending on what you're trying to drive. If you have an acute injury, I've had certain people who they didn't have TB or BPC on hand. They were at a strongman competition, tore their bicep, going back to the bicep example, and they only had GHK-Cu because their friend had it. It took a full 50 milligram vial, like, in that one single bolus.
Ooh,
but again,
okay.
that's a one single bolus, one-time thing.
Yeah.
You can do different amounts, different doses, depending on what the problem is, what you're trying to drive. So it's more, okay, why am I using this? And then you kind of go back to, okay, that'll dictate the dosage and the frequency and duration.
That's got me curious. 50 milligrams? Yeah, so that's a lot, isn't it? Yeah, because I was
A huge amount. Yeah, that's a lot, where you're not going to be doing that long term.
Yeah.
But as a one-time bolus therapy, it drove up enough recovery so that by the time we got home, because he had to fly home, it was like 48 hours later, we still turned on those repair-based genes, gave him time to get home to then apply some growth hormone, BBC, TB, Pentosyn, other players like that. So that's not happening all the time, though. If you're the person who's taking it prophylactically, like you, for like the repair side of things from a myological, so muscle tissue or soft tissue aspect, you're what, couple hundred micrograms. You can do that for 4, 8, 12 week increments on end, something like that. Pull it out depending on what you're doing with TB and BPC. You could also do like 4-week on course of each. So a month of BPC, a month of TB, a month of GHK-Cu, off for a month. Like, you can do it cyclical. You can base it on so many different things on your paradigm. But that's generally what we're looking at there with application.
Okay, and then what do you think of people doing it, say, topically and injection simultaneously?
Yeah, if you need that, for sure, because you'll get the systemic benefits on the neurological side of things, on the epigenetic side of things, more so than if you apply it topically. Topically will obviously still get into circulation, but it'll be more locally applied to that area, so more localized effects to skin, to hair. Like, I haven't seen in my application with whatever, a couple hundred people with GHK-Cu to this point, where if you apply it for like the creams for your face for the wrinkles, or derma roll to foam into your hair and stuff like that, I don't see it having spillover into that global recovery of myological tissue, which to me says genetic repair wise, probably not being turned on too much, but you would complement it with an injectable therapy. But if you just need the hair or skin stuff, just a cream or a lotion, stuff like that.
So it's very localized on the skin. It won't build up systemically. Yeah. Okay.
And it will, to a degree, because no matter what, if it's applied topically and it's getting into the skin, it's still going to go systemic. But that's where you get into splitting hairs and saying, okay, what happens in reality? Even though it is going systemic, the majority of those GHK-Cu molecules, I just call them proteins and everything at this point, but the majority of those molecules are going to that localized area, and the spillover is so minor, it's almost not worth noting.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, do you think using it topically for years on end, what do you think of that on your skin?
Everything has a place and purpose, right? I would say no matter what, we're trying not to use everything all the time, just because if you do that, which in this peptide kind of ancillary player world, it's so hard not to. Everything has so many benefits, right? To me, I would probably do something like sometime on, sometime off, just to rotate other compounds in. I don't think it's anything inherently wrong. Like, if you were at 100 micrograms, I mean, unless you're having a toxicity issue, which almost no one is going to have at that dosage, given the copper requirements of day-to-day human physiology, I feel like you could be at 100 micrograms probably for years and not have problems. I've had a couple people at this point where, and this is a little bit different because they did have cardiac myopathies, some Purkinje fiber-based damage, some septum damage, cardiac-based problems because of low copper levels. It's their background therapy pretty much for life, but they also had a specific damage to fix, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I gather most peptides, obviously the longer you do it, the more antibodies build up and the less efficacious it becomes. So then, yeah, I mean, that got me wondering. I do GHK quite a bit. I mean, I've used quite a few bottles of it on my skin. I have it combined with Matrixol and agirreline, like a kind of combination of all of them.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it seems to work really well. But then I'm wondering if I just keep on doing it. I've been doing it solid for like quite a few, like 3 months solid now. And then, so I'm thinking maybe just give myself a month off, just try something else on my skin just to kind of let those antibodies kind of go back down again and then cycle it basically.
Your skin looks amazing from my end. What I always like to do for a lot of people, and I do it for myself too, I just did it with NACI drops. So the actual carnosine kind. I pulled it out just to see if it was doing what it was supposed to, and then to see if those positive benefits regress. And they did. So cancer eye drop wise, I need those to keep up the ocular restraints, or rather the ocular demands of my day. So same thing for you. Skin's looking good. You know it worked. Pull it out for a month. Don't do anything else and just see what happens. If you don't see regression, then cool, it made those long-term genomic changes. If not, maybe you do need to apply something or that same product longer term. So it's always good to see, okay, what's having that non-genomic acute effect and that long-term genomic effect? What's really changing the genes? And to a degree, obviously, since we're going to be aging no matter what, it's kind of like you're going to have something in, but it's figuring out your perfect frequency, because everyone's going to have different amount of damage from sun exposure, from day-to-day stressors, from everything.